is victory.
Welcome to Victory News. It's Wednesday, October the 2nd, 2024. I'm Greg Stevens, along with Mike Garafalo, Fiora Hernandez, and Tim Fox. Here are a few of the stories that we're watching for you right now. Vice presidential candidates J.D. Vance and Tim Walz squared off in their first and only debate last night. We'll bring you the highlights. And Montana has become a focus state for the balance of power in the United States Senate. Ahead, we'll ask wallbuilders.com President Victory News contributor Tim Barton if he sees change coming in November and more. But first, let's go to Fiora Hernandez with the latest on the Iranian missile strike on Israel. Fiora.
Thank you, Greg. A tense few hours across Israel on Tuesday as Iran launched at least 180 ballistic missiles toward the Jewish state. With advance notice of the impending attack, in part due to coordination with the United States, the military IDF ordered Israeli residents to bomb shelters until the all-clear was given. IDF spokesperson Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari says a small number of missiles made it past the Iron Dome defense shield and landed in the central and southern part of the country.
Iran's attack is a severe and dangerous escalation. There will be consequences. Our defensive and offensive capabilities are at the highest levels of readiness. Our operational plans are ready. We will respond wherever, whenever, and however we choose.
The all-clear didn't come until near 8 p.m. local time. Iran called the attack its response to the IDF's killing of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah and another senior Hezbollah official. Overnight, Israeli forces reportedly struck the Lebanese capital of Beirut again, and Israeli ground forces are said to be conducting raids inside Lebanon, targeting the Iranian-backed terror group Hezbollah. Ohio Congressman Max Miller told Fox News Digital that Iran and its proxies must stop threatening the world. Miller, one of only 2 Jewish Republicans in Congress, added the U.S. stood with its only Democratic ally in the Middle East, and Israel's dismantling of Hamas and Hezbollah was making a safer world. Florida Democrat Congressman Jared Moskowitz said on X Tuesday that Iran had, quote, made a mistake and put its nuclear facilities on the board as fair game. Rabbi Dan Levitt told WPBF News.
I think our first reaction is deep care and concern and worry for Israelis and all who live in that land who are under attack today from an onslaught of ballistic missiles from the most nefarious regime on the planet.
Levin described Israel's response to the attack, quote, strong and resolute. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham emphasizes the need for decisive action against Iran.
So if I were the Israelis, I would take out 1 or 2 oil refineries to up the ante. If you keep hitting me, I'm going to put you out of business.
At the White House on Tuesday, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan confirmed that Iran's actions will not go unpunished.
We are proud of the actions that we've taken alongside Israel to protect and defend Israel. We have made clear that there will be consequences, severe consequences for this attack, and we will work with Israel to make that the case.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said also on Tuesday that Iran will pay for the missile attack. Mike?
Fiora, for the latest on Hurricane Helene, the search, rescue, and recovery effort continues, with the death toll across a 6-state region now topping 160. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, who oversees FEMA, had this to say on Tuesday.
I thought it very moving and very telling that North Carolina's emergency management director described Hurricane Helene as catastrophic and noted the fact that numerous towns situated along the river had virtually disappeared, had been completely destroyed. In fact, Hurricane Helene is of an historic magnitude. This many states hit this hard.
The secretary went on to say the wind from Helene stretched 350 miles from the center of the storm, and hundreds upon hundreds of homes, businesses, and roads had been destroyed. At least part of the response aimed at helping those on the far left of the political spectrum, with 19th News announced it is raising funds for victims of Helene that are LGBTQ+. as well as women seeking an abortion, according to the Post Millennial. Jessica Cutts of the 19th News posted this. We focused on mutual aid groups and organizations on the ground that are helping LGBTQ plus people and people seeking an abortion. Meanwhile, the Biden-Harris administration has put the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, into action, but with a shocking twist. While Americans of every race, religion, and creed are facing homelessness and a need for basic daily supplies, FEMA's focus, apparently, according to their strategic plan, is equity in response to the catastrophe. FEMA's strategic plan states this: goals position FEMA to address the increasing range and complexity of disasters, support the diversity of communities we serve. Libs of TikTok posted, in case you're wondering why the response to Hurricane Helene has been a disaster, FEMA's goal, number one, is to instill equity as a foundation of emergency management. This is real. Aside from getting people the basic necessities of life, North Carolina officials are also trying to restore voting for residents in the western part of the state before Election Day. Just the News reports the catastrophic flooding destroyed some election board offices and has at least temporarily suspended mail. Absentee voting has already started in the Tar Heel state, and in-person voting begins on October 17th, with another potential issue being finding alternative polling stations for those destroyed by Helene. The New York Times reports North Carolina's rural 11-county region has about 570,000 registered voters, including 185,000 Democrats and 185,000 Republicans. The state has launched a special website for voters affected by the storm where they can find information on county board office closures and basic information about casting their ballots. That website is ncsbe.gov/Helene. Tim.
Mike, the one and only vice presidential debate took place in New York City on Tuesday night. For the most part, it was a cordial face-off between Republican J.D. Vance and Democrat Tim Walz. But at one point, CBS did cut off Vance's mic while addressing the issue of Haitian migrants in Springfield, Ohio.
Margaret, the rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check. And since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on. So there's an application called the CBP One app where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by our own Senator, for
leadership. Describing the legal process. We have so much to get to, Senator.
Moments later, CBS cut off Vance's mic. It was the evening's most contentious moment, exposing CBS News' apparent favor for Minnesota Democrat Governor Tim Walz. No fact-checking was directed at Walz, but on the lead issue for Democrats, the killing of the unborn, Vance did fact-checking of his own.
But as I read the Minnesota law that you signed into law, the statute that you signed into law, it says that a doctor who presides over an abortion where the baby survives, the doctor is under no obligation to provide life-saving care to a baby who survives a botched late-term abortion. That is, I think, whether you're pro-choice or pro-abortion, that is fundamentally barbaric.
Trying to distort the way a law is written to try and make a point, that's not it at all.
What was I wrong about, Governor? Please tell me, what was I wrong about?
That is not the way the law is written.
Turns out Vance was right, though. Walz never clearly responded. Earlier in the debate, this exchange took place.
Governor Walz, you said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year.
There that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said.
This was the one and only vice presidential debate scheduled before Election Day on November 5th. Greg?
All right, political commentators reacted to the vice presidential debate, with just about all coming to the conclusion that Republican J.D. Vance won.
J.D. Vance put on a masterclass in how to handle biased moderators and a lying opponent, and it was a thing of beauty.
From this perspective, right, the Republican side of the world, 10 out of 10 for J.D. Vance, 10 strike. As Abby noted, he landed a lot of good punches, but he did so with an iron fist and a velvet glove. He was very smooth. Very slick. He was likable. He looked presidential. He had a command of the facts.
And Tim Walz really did indeed look like the bumbling knucklehead he said he was.
Even strong critic of Donald Trump, Geraldo Rivera, deemed Vance the winner.
Vance proved himself to be someone who could moderate his tone, who could be agreeable where necessary. He wasn't the wicked, aggressive stereotype that the mainstream media has made him out to be.
You're just judging on his performance last night. I think it raises questions about Walz's fitness for 3 jobs: vice presidential candidate, vice president, or president. The person on that stage last night, there are real questions in the minds of lots of people. Is he ready for those jobs? Because he didn't come ready for that debate.
Needs to be known that vice presidential debates typically do not alter the course of a presidential election. Let's talk with the president of wallbuilders.com, co-author of the American Story, Victory News contributor Tim Barton. Welcome to Victory News.
Thanks, Greg. Good to be with you.
So when it comes down to who won the debate last night, let's consider the liberal gray lady known as the New York Times, who said, quote, "A crisp Vance fends off Walz." Now let's listen to Tim Walz and J.D. Vance debate an issue that I believe that is vital to our nation's future. Here we go.
Kamala Harris wants to use the power of government and big tech to silence people from speaking their minds. That is a threat to democracy that will long outlive this present political moment.
You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That's the test. That's the Supreme Court test.
Why is there a liberal obsession with hamstringing the First Amendment and silencing opposing voices?
No, well, it's because the current liberals and progressives are so far left. They're embracing socialism, a Marxist communist ideology. When you look at Kamala Harris, who is running for president right now, when she was a senator, she had a more liberal voting record than an actual outspoken socialist, Bernie Sanders. So you have someone left of a socialist who is advocating and running. And what we know from socialist, Marxist, communists historically is they want to control the narrative. They want to control the media. They want to control what people think, what they say. And so this is what you are seeing when they're saying, hey, we're not saying you can't speak. We're just going to make sure you can't misspeak. This is like 1984. It's like an Animal Farm dystopian kind of novel. But this is exactly where liberals and Democrats are right now, that they want to control the narrative so that no one can point out their hypocrisy, their errors, or their lies.
And it really does happen. It happens to us all the time. Here's one more moment from the debate when J.D. Vance recognized how difficult Tim Walz's job is in this campaign.
You've got to play whack-a-mole. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver rising take-home pay, which of course he did. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver lower inflation, which of course he did. And then you simultaneously got to defend Kamala Harris's atrocious economic record, which has made gas, groceries, and housing unaffordable.
Tim, are Americans wary enough of their daily economic life to get behind Vance and Trump this coming November?
Well, I think it's certainly becoming that way. What we know is the number one issue for the American voter is the economy, inflation, and the border immigration kind of issues. And all of those, they view President Trump as being the one who will do a better job with that. I do think J.D. Vance helped, even though, as you pointed out, generally vice presidential debates don't have that big of an influence on the presidential race. However, where it does help is President Trump is villainized and demonized by many on the left, and they have thrown J.D. Vance in that same category where they said that he's weird and he's awful and backwoods and et cetera, et cetera. And his performance last night showed that he is a very normal, a very likable person. He's reasonable. He's well thought out. And so many of the narratives they've been using to describe him simply don't fit. And so I think that does make a difference for the American voter, looking at inflation, economy, immigration, and then the fact that the accusations that the left has been putting against Vance or Trump simply don't fit is going to make a difference.
Okay, real quick on school choice. Donald Trump invited an 8th grade girl from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, to speak, who was able to break out of a horrible inner city school because of school choice. She now leads her student council. Here she is.
Being the president has given me a lot of trust and responsibility. To know that students here at Trinity are trusting me in every decision I make is really important to me. I am so thankful for this opportunity. I will not have these opportunities or blessings without school choice.
When you see a young girl like Cynthia Dunlap there growing in knowledge and confidence, how can you not support school choice, Tim? About 30 seconds here.
Well, it's something that I think Americans should support. We are currently embracing a socialistic education system where there's only one provider, and it's the government. When it comes to the reality of where some of this funding comes from, and unfortunately, there's a lot of Christians, there's a lot of homeschool families that don't support school choice because they're afraid it's going to put limitations on what they can do and how they can do it. But the bottom line is, every state that has tried school choice, it has helped people in really bad schools have opportunities, and they have produced very good results, as competition almost always does.
Yes, it does. Tim Barton, thank you so much. Have you back here in just a moment.
Thank you.
Mike?
Greg, U.S. job openings unexpectedly increased in August, rising by 329,000 to 8 million, marking the first increase in 3 months, according to the Labor Department's JOLTS report. The growth was driven by increased postings in the government, construction, and transportation sectors. Government jobs accounted for 103,000 openings, with a notable rise in state and local jobs, particularly in education. Construction job openings surged by 138,000, likely due to manufacturing plant construction. Manufacturing openings slightly declined, and the financial sector saw a sharp drop, while professional services grew. Economists had expected job openings to remain steady. Stellantis announced on Monday a recall of over 150,000 plug-in hybrid Jeep SUVs due to potential fire risks after 13 vehicles caught fire while parked and turned off. According to the Daily Caller, the company estimates that about 5%, or roughly 7,500 of the recalled vehicles, may have the defect. To Stellantis, that is, advised affected customers not to charge their cars and to park away from structures, noting that the fire risk is lower when the battery is depleted. Fior.
Mike, according to a recently released report, homeschooling continues to increase in America even after COVID-19 lockdowns. The Christian Post reports the Johns Hopkins Institute for Education Policy's Homeschool Research Lab has published an analysis of homeschooling. It looked at 21 states in the 2023-2024 school year. The report revealed that 19 states saw an increase in the number of children being homeschooled, with Delaware seeing a 29% boost. The report described the reason for the rise in homeschooling as unknown, but in recent years, many parents have decided to homeschool their children due to concerns over public school content. New York City Mayor Eric Adams' attorneys accused the Department of Justice of leaking sensitive case information and asked the judge to investigate, while claiming the leak made it impossible for Adams to get a fair trial. The federal court filing obtained by Politico blasted the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York for leaking information on raids, subpoenas, and Adams allegedly taking campaign contributions in exchange for pushing safety inspections through at the Turkish consulate in Manhattan. Adams' lawyer indicated the leaks were prejudicial toward the mayor. Adams told reporters Tuesday,
"This is just not right. Throughout the 10 months, to just have this leakage."
Adams' attorneys noted the leaks had the potential to compromise the mayor's re-election campaign. Tim?
Fior, a web of non-governmental organizations known as NGOs are collaborating with government agencies to resettle so-called refugees, while the Biden-Harris administration policies exacerbates the migrant crisis. According to the Daily Caller, the Capital Research Center's Parker Thayer says Joe Biden's border policies had benefited the network of immigration NGOs, highlighting massive government contracts and grants to provide logistics and humanitarian efforts that encourage illegal immigration. The USA Spending Database reveals in 2008, just over $33 million was allocated to NGOs, but in 2022, that number had jumped to a whopping $953 million. Mike?
That's a lot of money, Tim. With control of the U.S. Senate seemingly up for grabs come November, an important debate took place Monday night in Montana between incumbent Democrat Jon Tester and challenger Republican Tim Sheehy.
And we hear a lot about the three I's, which is interest rates, inflation, and insurance. And as we know, in wildfire-prone areas, insurance is becoming an increasingly hard thing to get for home coverage. And that affects your mortgage, because oftentimes you can't get a mortgage if you can't insure the home. But the fourth I we don't hear about much is immigration. We've had 12 million people enter this country by some accounts in the last 3 to 3.5 years. That's a massive increase in demand.
And here's Jon Tester on the often deadly drug fentanyl.
Fentanyl is a huge problem in this country. There's no doubt about it. And government can play a role in stopping it. Got a bill passed called the Fend Off Fentanyl Bill. The precursor elements for fentanyl are coming from China. and they're going into Mexico. Mexico's making the fentanyl and shipping it across the border and poisoning, and it is poisoning our people.
Recent polls show Sheehy up by about 5 points. Let's bring back in the president of wallbuilders.com, Tim Barton. Tim, why could a Sheehy win in Montana make or break Kamala Harris if she were to win come November?
Well, because it would give Republicans control of the Senate once again. And why it would make a difference is if Kamala Harris did win the presidency, then she would have the opportunity to nominate a lot of individuals in various capacities in various offices, and certainly even judges. And those appointments, approvals have to go often through the Senate. And so it would give the Senate the ability to have a check and balance, which is what the founding fathers intended, that there should be a check and balance between the branches to make sure that maybe some of these very anti-American, extremely liberal individuals might not have the opportunity to be on the courts if they're against America, the whole CRT, DEI, whatever the case might be. So there's a check and balance there. Also, what happens in the House right now, Republicans have control of the House, Democrats have control of the Senate, and it's made it very challenging to get good bills done, to even send to President Biden to give him the chance to veto or sign. And so having Republicans in control of the Senate again would give them the opportunity to get more positive legislation at least done where they can send it to the president, where whoever that president is has a chance to sign it or veto it.
Sure. Now, Tim, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre was asked about the administration's policies with Iran and if they were making it easier for them to act out against Israel. Here's her comment.
This administration has not lifted a single sanction on Iran. We cannot forget that. Rather, we continue to increase pressure. That's what we have seen. Our extensive sanctions on Iran remain in place, and we certainly will continue to enforce them.
Tim, didn't the administration relax or remove economic sanctions against Iran and then even free up billions of dollars?
That's exactly right. One of the things they did early on was they freed up billions of dollars to Iran. And it was shortly after that was freed up that you saw some initial missile strikes going against Israel. Because what we have known, and I say we, this is what anybody who's paid attention for decades has known, is Hezbollah has been an action arm of Iran, that Iran is funding Hezbollah. And many of the attacks coming against Israel has been Iranian-backed, Iranian-funded. And so it's very dishonest, which is at this point, unfortunately, not surprising that we're seeing people in the political circles be dishonest to only present the narrative that they want and censor and leave out things that don't fit the ideas they're promoting. It's absolutely dishonest. The Biden-Harris administration has done things to make it easier for Iran. And so even when you hear individuals from the Biden administration say that we're partnering with Israel and we're helping to go against Iran, well, it's worth noting they didn't say how we're partnering with Israel and how we're opposing Iran. Certainly, we have not done a good job as a nation of upholding those sanctions. And so at best, it is dishonest. At worst, it could be something far more nefarious.
And Tim, Representative Byron Donalds of Florida went on the Breakfast Club to explain how Kamala Harris caused the current inflation woes. And when they didn't believe him, he literally pulled out the receipts and gave them to Charlemagne, the show's host. Then he explained why Americans are suffering.
Larry Summers was the Treasury Secretary for Bill Clinton. He was an economic advisor to Barack Obama. He said that the American Rescue Plan that Joe Biden wanted, that Kamala Harris was the tie-breaking vote in the United States Senate, would create a massive inflation that we have not seen in a generation. Well, guess what? Larry Summers was correct. You know who also was correct, Angela? I was.
Now, Donalds holds Kamala Harris accountable for that tie-breaking vote. Tim, what's your take on Harris and America's economic problems?
Well, he's absolutely right. This is something that certainly goes back to the Biden-Harris administration. It's something that J.D. Vance did an excellent job pointing out. When you go back and look at how things were under President Trump, when we were getting more take-home pay, when people's raises were outpacing inflation, things were so much better. And it wasn't COVID that made us take the nosedive that we did. It was definitely the economic policies of the Biden-Harris administration. And so the fact that Congressman Donalds is able to present that is correct. Unfortunately, individuals like those on The View and some of these other podcasts, they only repeat the Democrat talking points and they don't always see the receipts. So it's really refreshing to see a congressman show the receipts in this situation.
All right, Tim, thank you for that. We're going to see you back here in a couple minutes. Tim Fox.
Mike, on Flashpoint Tuesday night, Gene Bailey and his guests talked about the Iranians' failed missile attack on Israel.
And I'm watching the Iron Dome intercept so many of those missiles there, Gene, and I'm just thinking,
you go back and you read some of those scriptures about the hand of God protecting Israel and all of that, and they couldn't possibly have imagined seeing this kind of technology and God using this type of technology to protect Israel. But it's pretty amazing to watch. And of course, it doesn't stop all of them. They still get some through. Right. No doubt that we need to be praying for Israel and hopefully get an administration that will support Israel fully, not just in word, but also in deed behind the scenes, instead of trying to undermine them. But absolutely, you said the right word. This escalates it to a new level.
Let me go to Lance. Your thoughts on all of this? What does this do for the future?
I've got a word right now, which is from a messianic Christian. And he pointed this out. Israel's operations against Hezbollah, Gene, with the killing of Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah, last Friday, happened on the historic date of the 25th of Elul, as Netanyahu was decreeing against Israel's enemies at the United Nations. Hezbollah was brought to its knees on the 25th day of Elul. Now, if you go to Nehemiah chapter 6, verses 15 and 16, it says, so the wall was completed on the 25th day of the month of Elul.
Be sure to watch this and all other episodes of Flashpoint when you visit govictory.com/flashpoint. Greg?
That's so true. The feasts are starting now. Before we go, let's talk with Tim Barton one more time. Tim, let's listen to one more soundbite from last night's debate. This one on the Democrats' #1 issue, abortion, which they have now wrapped with in vitro fertilization. Here it is.
Their Project 2025 is going to have a registry of pregnancies. It's going to make it more difficult, if not impossible, to get contraception and limit access, if not eliminate access to infertility treatments.
All right, Tim, I'm going to ask you to be the fact checker. Is that true?
Well, that is absolutely not correct. But it's also worth noting, President Trump has already acknowledged that he's not working with Project 2025. There are several groups out there that are trying to come up with resources so that if there is a Republican president, they're not having to try to find the 5,000, the 9,000 individuals that are needed to fill all of the vacancies they will be required to fill. They're coming up with ideas and names, and that's what Project 2025 was doing. So this is not working in conjunction with President Trump. But again, this is one of those dishonest statements coming from the Democrat Party that is not what is in Project 2025.
All right. And so much misinformation. Stay with Victory News. Get the facts. Also go to Wall Builders. You can find out more about how you can help secure America's future. Just visit wallbuilders.com. Tim, always a blessing. Thank you for being with us today.
Thanks, Greg. My pleasure.
All right, you just heard Lance Wallnau talking about it. We are on the verge of the Feast of the Lord. This is why Israel 365 was not with us today. Feast of Trumpets begins tonight, the new year. And the Day of Atonement is following right behind that. And then the Feast of Tabernacles, when the Lord will tabernacle with us. All of these things are happening right now. Is there any connection between the things like we see in the hurricanes and what we're seeing in Israel? Genesis 12, 2 and 3. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great. Thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless ye, and curse him that curses you. And in thee all the families of the earth shall be blessed. When America blesses Israel, good things happen. Something for you to consider. 877-281-6297. 877-281-6297. A licensed prayer minister is ready to pray with you. We're not going to pray in fear. We're going to pray in thanksgiving and rejoicing like they're doing in Israel right now. Psalms of praise. Our thanks to Tim Barton and especially you. Thanks for joining us. We return at 5 Eastern, 4 Central with Media Research Center's Eric Scheiner, the Executive Director of the Federalist, Joy Pullman. Make sure you're here as well. The world reports the problem. Victory Channel brings the answer. Whatever's born of God overcomes the world. This is the victory that's overcome the world, our faith. So stay in faith. God bless you. See you this evening.